practicing a religion, and that religion is known as Nichiren Buddhism, and I've practicing this religion since the day I was born.
Nichiren Buddhism, Christianity, Evangelist, Hinduism, Hare Krishna. Currently, I don't practice any religion. That's because I take knowledge from each of the practices that I've learned from Buddhism, from Christianity, and from Hinduism, and then also in general, doing my own spiritual practice in terms of meditation.
I was born Catholic, baptized Catholic, and I did the communion, which is like when you become a fully fledged Catholic, when I was 18, but at this point of time, I'm pretty doubtful of Catholicism. If anything, I consider myself agnostic right now.
I'm Jewish, and guess I've been practicing since I was born. It's just kind of something I grew up with.
I was born to a Christian father and a Jewish mother.
My mother introduced this religion to me, and she was a very strong practitioner for this religion. Before I was born, she's been practicing this religion, and then it passed on to me. And even though my family doesn't really practice this religion, but I hold on to this religion very strongly because of my personal experience with this religion.
Basically, I was raised with a particular religion, born Buddhist. However, right now, I don't feel or want to do it either because I'm rebellious or I just feel it's not for me as of this moment. Up until college, actually coming to Soka University, ironically, I stopped practicing. What I practice sort of is part of the Soka Gakkai organization, so that's the SGI and Nichiren Buddhism. So,
Well, when I was baptized, my parents were putting myself into the religion.
I was raised with both traditions to some extent. I identify a lot more with the Jewish ones, though. But as far as actually practicing any religion, I'm definitely an atheist, and I've been a practicing atheist since about middle school.
I think religion works for some people.
I wasn't very strong in practicing this religion. I didn't like the idea of practicing a religion. I find it very tedious because I had nothing to worry about. I had no financial issue. I don't really have much health issue. And I feel like I was very in a good environment that does not need any reassurance or anything that would promise me a better life.
I say I'm agnostic because I feel like if there is a God out there, he's not a very good God, because otherwise there's so many people dying for not as great reasons compared to other people, and it's just, why would this God let his people die for reasons that he could prevent, like natural disasters, or like, why does he let the rich get richer and more greedy rather than spreading the wealth, like how in Catholicism you're supposed to think of the poor, and he doesn't seem to be doing that very well.
I don't think there's anything particularly good or bad about it. I think it just depends how you personally take it. I mean, I didn't grow up in a particularly religious household, so it was never really that big a deal for me. We celebrated like the really big holidays, but you know, some people get a little fanatic about it, and that's maybe a little too extreme for me, so I don't know, but they have their reasons, and it does a lot of good things. You know, there are a lot of charities that come out of it, and you know, it gives people something to believe in, which I think is really good. But at the same time, if you're limiting others' rights because of your beliefs, I don't really know if I could support that.
I've doubted this religion before because I encountered this stage where I had a personal identity crisis, because I don't know what am I or what to practice and where should I go. I was really lost, and this religion was right in front of me, and I began to like question, like, is this really a religion, or is this like a false religion that's blindly leading someone?
Because I don't believe in any religious tradition to be true. So, in other words, mine is mostly just a lack of faith in that no religious tradition actually makes sense to me.
I have doubted the religions I've practiced, so Buddhism, because when they say their way is the only correct way, and if you only believe in that, then you can sort of be happy, and that's the only way to become happy. So I didn't like that, so I was like, moving on. Christianity, evangelist, yes, because they also say their way is the only right way, and if you don't believe in them, you go to hell. So moving on. Hinduism, Hare Krishna. I don't know. I guess I don't really doubt it, but I don't practice it that much. But yeah, I have to think about it.
I think I've been doubting Catholicism all my life, but I never really explicit.
Because over time I've come to realize that no religious tradition makes any sense to me. To some extent, everyone that I've ever looked at or considered requires a leap of faith that without it, nothing else makes sense. And without being willing to do that, just none of them makes sense.
I came to a turning point where I decided to practice this religion is because I faced at the bottom of my life, like the worst time in my life, which is to be, how do I say this? To be diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 8. And arthritis is a disease where you can't really cure because it's like an immune disease, and there's not much treatment towards it. But my mother was practicing this faith, and she grew on really strong towards this faith, and finally we could find like a doctor that could provide us treatment. And back then, like in 2001, like there wasn't much treatment. She subscribed chemo drugs to me at such a young age, and usually chemo drugs are like for cancer patients and all, and basically those harmful patients that's not necessary for a child. But yeah, and so like through this faith, my mother practiced so hard that she prayed that we could get better good fortune to meet a good doctor that could subscribe something that's more suitable for my health. And finally we did meet a doctor, and that really strengthened my faith because I saw the power, kind of like the power or the reassurance from practicing this religion, and I keep moving on with it.
Considering the huge catastrophe that happened to people's families and their homes and their jobs, I can't believe in a good God that would let these horrible things happen to his people.
It was March of 2013, actually. I went to a mega church. So a mega church is kind of interesting because there are more than about 10,000 members of the particular organization or church. I started it because I wanted to branch out of just Buddhism. I knew only Buddhism, so I wanted to really look at what are the differences and similarities and really compare Buddhism to Christianity. So I actually got baptized. So sort of like they dipped my whole body into the water, and then they're like, okay, so basically you are now kind of in the hands of Christ, and you're kind of cleaned. All your sins are wiped away, and you're basically born a new person.
Most religious adherents follow the religion of their parents. They're acculturated into it from a young age, and that's the only way people really know to think about the world. So in that sense, I don't think that I'm superior to that at all. I think that I'm fortunate enough to not have been raised with that grounding.
I was brought up Jewish, but I'm technically not Jewish because my mom isn't Jewish. She was brought up Catholic, but she kind of dropped the religion as soon as she left her parents' house. But my dad was brought up Jewish, and they just kind of agreed that's how they were going to raise us. But like I said, I wasn't really brought up super religious, so I was never restricted to doing anything except for like getting tattoos or dyeing my hair crazy colors, which I dyed my hair anyway. But I never really wondered how other religions work because my parents were super open about it. I mean, I've been to church more times than I've been to a synagogue, and I've taken classes on Islam and just grew up in a very multicultural area, so it was never really a big issue to me. Nobody really cared that I was Jewish, and I never really cared that anybody else was any other religion.
I stopped practicing right before I came to Soka, so when I was 18. It was actually right when I had my confirmation.
In the summer, I got into Hinduism, sort of like kind of cultish. Yeah, there are many, I guess, critics of the religion. It's Hare Krishna, and so I did that during the summer. It was around July of 2013, learning more about Krishna, like Lord Krishna, of the Hindu gods, and I just wanted to, explore. I'm all about exploring and finding out new religions and trying them out, regardless. Right now, I don't practice any of them, so.
Before, I've participated in different Jewish traditions. I've gone to temple. Still don't believe in that at all. I've gone to church with my dad and with other members of my dad's family. I still find it just as crazy. I tried out SGI Buddhism when I got to Soka, and it was cool up to the point that there were faith-based aspects that I just couldn't accept and refused to accept. Anytime that I'm told to accept something as a grounding to base everything off of, I ask, why do we start there? Why do we need to take this as granted when all the premises build off of that? Shouldn't we examine that a bit further? And at that point, religion tends to fall apart.
No, I don't think my nationality really affects my decision to practice this religion.
I definitely think my nationality had an influence of how I think about Catholicism today, and in the past as well, because the reason why I wasn't as forward with what I was going to do with my doubt back then was because everyone in the Filipino community around me was like, oh yeah, like God is the best, God will take care of everything in life, and I was just like, never really noticed God do anything for me. And if something did happen, it was because of my own mobility or my mom's support.
Growing up as a Taiwanese in Taiwan, and imagining myself in that culture, mainly Buddhist culture, I feel it does have influence because there were a lot of various temples around, and many of my family and their friends also practice Buddhism. So I feel like before the age of 6, it was mainly just Buddhism and the environment that really shaped how I think, and the schools too, because of the sort of Confucius beliefs also.
I think because my parents brought me up in such an open household where, there was no right or wrong way to practice your religion, it gave me a very open mindset to what people do.
If I was raised in a different environment, would I have accepted religion on my own? And as far as that's concerned, I honestly don't know. I grew up in a primarily Mormon community, which mostly just led me to dislike Mormonism. My dad's side of the family is very, very Protestant, Southern Baptist to be exact. And just being around them drives me crazy because I can't accept things on their level, and they have a drastically different worldview than I do. I don't think that these different influences from within my circles of connections have altered my view towards accepting any religion, much more so altered my views more against.
I come from Malaysia, and Malaysia is a country that is very strongly Muslim influenced because it's an Islamic country. And since I'm a Malaysian and I don't really practice Muslim, so I see like a contradictory there, showing that I don't practice my national religion.
But currently I'm a U.S. citizen, so I consider myself like Taiwanese-American, most likely American. However, because it's a Christian nation, and many of where I grew up, the people around me, they practice Christianity and also Judaism. So those two sort of, in a way, I'm more aware and been to different synagogues and also churches around where I lived. So I think I'm more exposed to when in school you would say, for example, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and under God. Like they also say that in school. So I feel, although I still consider obviously myself Buddhist, but I don't think I'm a pure Buddhist anymore. I have my own kind of belief regarding how I grew up into my belief system.
If I didn't live in America and wasn't as didn't have the experience of seeing other religions, and had I lived in the Philippines, for example, where everyone was Catholic and everyone like believed in the same thing for the most part, and there's a small percentage of Muslims or like Buddhists, I probably would try to force myself more to be more Catholic and try to see if I could still contact God.
But I think growing up in a different environment would give you a very different outlook on religion and just life in general, because if I grew up in a very conservative Jewish household, there are a lot of things I wouldn't have been allowed to do. There are a lot of people I wouldn't have been allowed to hang out with. I probably wouldn't have gone to public school. I probably would have gone to a yeshiva and only interacted with people of my own religion, and would have grown up very, very different and with different ideas onto how other people celebrate and whether they were just right or wrong as human beings. So it's definitely I think it's definitely important to grow up in an open mind, in an open environment.
I think there's a possibility that I might be influenced by other religion if I live in a community base that's very strongly practiced in Christianity or Hinduism or etc. But I feel like at this moment, at this point of time, like since I've been through this kind of personal experience, I don't think I might be persuaded to join another religion because I have developed a very strong faith in this Nichiren Buddhism.
I think that some people definitely need that. I think that others don't let it influence them to the same extent, but use it as more of a grounding for certainty, for their own morals, for their values, because I honestly think that a lot of those just can't really be defined in a world completely devoid of religion. I know that for myself it's very difficult to figure out and put forward any kind of values as good, as true, as worth doing without having some kind of base as to why. Why these different values have any value, to use the same word to define.
Well, actually, I did tell other people that I doubted, but after a while, like the next week or two, I'd be like, oh yeah, like I had an experience with God, when I never really did, but it was just because everybody else did. I didn't want to be that one person who didn't, and everybody would like kind of stay away from that person, even though there were other people like that, but I didn't want to be like them for whatever reason.
I discovered that this religion is actually pretty good, and I slowly became more faithful and more loyal to this religion. It strengthened my faith, in other words. And I feel like doubt is always there in my head because I always question myself, and I'm always very indecisive at times. But I think it's a really good thing too, because when I doubt, I question and I go back to the readings, the Buddhism readings, and then it really strengthened my faith, and then it really remind me the reason why I joined this religion.
Sometimes it gets a little difficult when I'm talking to Zionists who really feel very strongly about the state of Israel, and I totally disagree with the state of Israel, so sometimes that gets a little awkward because they, turn against you and they're kind of like, you're not, supporting your people, and it's hard to explain that I don't feel like the Jews are necessarily a people, but rather we all belong to one human race, and I think it's a little ridiculous that we should feel that strongly about something that we need to kick other people out of their homes to achieve what we want. So
about difficulties, I might be able to overcome it, but I might be something else. I might not be the strong me today. I could be a depressed me. I don't know, like my fate, my future, if I were to take a different route, I don't know what it's gonna be like. And I really like my current life now, and I would not regret like practicing this religion or regret not taking another path.
I definitely practice different Jewish traditions, such as lighting the Hanukkah candles, fasting, and other holidays that I celebrate with my family. But as far as I'm concerned, I consider those mostly ethnic holidays as opposed to religious holidays. There was a time period in the mid 1800s or early 1900s when Jews went in to rewrite their history, and it was essentially the Bible minus all the miracles. I kind of consider that my approach to Judaism.
I definitely would never get a tattoo, ever, because that is so against the Jewish faith, and I don't know why. Like, I mean, I know why it's against the Jewish faith, but I don't know why that particular thing, I just could never do it. I could never go against my dad's wishes that strongly and, you know, get a tattoo. But I guess other restrictions, I have never really felt boxed in by my religion.
For me personally, my mother was introduced to this Buddhism because she was living in a Chinatown where usually Chinese people just practice Taoism, and they practice blindly to pray to this Buddha structure, and this blind faith usually takes place because it was part of the culture. And once she was introduced to this Nichiren Buddhism about practicing it, about how to practice it, she became to understand that actually there's a different way to practice faith. You can also, in this my religion, we believe that if you were to practice it, you can manifest your Buddhahood from yourself. And my mother chose this Buddhism because it seems logical and it seems connected to her. Like there's a connection between she and the religion, and she feels like she's being empowered, and then she feels stronger after practicing it, and that's why she decided to choose that part.
So religion, I believe, was, and I don't think it applies any longer in our current day, but it was a way of control of people and how they think, because people were more willing to kind of follow and not really have their own identity or individuality before. So I think religion served and its purpose already fulfilled.
Religion gives a good moral background for people to know that like killing is not a good thing, and that you should try to live a happy life.
Nowadays, I see religion more as a way for enlightenment and for people to become happy and to find kind of a belonging, a community.
It's okay, you know, it's a dialogue, and that's important. So I think any restrictions that people place on themselves through religion is more just a social construct that they have decided that they want to abide by, not something that they have to abide by.
As an outsider looking in, religion seems to be a set of beliefs that make the world make sense when it otherwise wouldn't, a set of practices that tie together a community, and an identity that's to some extent stacked against other identities. It's something that provides a firm grounding in a world that often lacks those. So it's, I believe, a safety net.
I definitely see religion more as one's own growth, and nobody should be telling other people what to believe in, judging them for not believing in God, for example, because I think that's how wars are created. So, for example, Christianity believes that if you don't believe in Jesus and Jesus as a savior, and he came back for us and saved us and kind of got rid of our sins, you will go to hell. And I don't believe that is a really, at least for myself, a great way of branching and linking between different religions, and it's kind of a dividing line, I think, between religion. My philosophy or my beliefs are more Buddhist, and so if people ask me, I would immediately say, oh, I'm Buddhist. And it's very interesting, people kind of can tell. I think from how I present myself, where like sort of like I'm kind of a peaceful guy, people kind of assume, and I'm Asian, so Chinese looking, so when right away people tell me like, oh, are you, if I would ask him, oh, what do you think?
I don't think I would be any different, really, if I didn't practice Judaism, just because, like I said, my family just wasn't all that religious to begin with. We're pretty reformed Jewish family, but I like it because it's a nice thing to celebrate. You know, I enjoy getting together with my family and celebrating Hanukkah and listening to all the stories, and it is a kind of a nice community builder, because when I go somewhere and if somebody goes, oh, you know, you have a really Jewish last name, and I'm like, yeah, I am, and they're like, oh, we're Jewish too, and that's kind of cool because it's something that we share that I might not otherwise have too much in common with these people, so it's kind of fun.
I feel like religion should not be measured according to the amount of practitioners, the population of the practitioners. I feel like religion should be judged by personal basis. Sometimes I see flaws in my religion, and sometimes I see the benefit in practicing this religion. And since like there's the flaw and the benefits balancing one another, I don't see like it being the best religion among all religions.
Obviously, there are radicals and extremism and all that, but in general, they're a way to help humans improve themselves and develop themselves. And I truly do not believe one is superior to the other.
I think like some people practice religion, it's because they might be influenced by the community. For instance, like in Malaysia, as I mentioned earlier, that it's an Islamic country. And in fact, the government implement this rule saying that all Malay race has to practice Islam. And I think this is a very restrictive rule, but it is on our regulations and our policy. So many Malay people have to practice religion, and all of them are considered Muslims and all.
However, I'm very turned off by the fact that one religion claims that they are better to the other. I think they're the ones that we have to really be careful and watch out for terrible things to go down the road.
Any religious adherent will tell you that their religion is better than the others, but as far as I've seen, there's no one religion that offers any kind of truth claim that can actually be verified. So in that sense, there's no religion that is evidentially superior to the others.
None of them are better. They are all equal, but some you just gotta be careful with their message. Yeah, you can't even say they're like lesser, because then obviously one is better than the other. If you're like, they're equal, but some are not as good, but then that means the other is superior. So it's a very tricky question. It's a very good question, but I truly do not believe that any religion is superior to one another. I really like religions with music and with a lot of dancing, especially like gospel music or soul music. I feel different.
I don't think I depend on it at all. I think it's more just something nice it's there, and it's like I said, I do it more because I like the traditions and the family connections it makes and the stories and everything. That's all kind of fun.
Probably 10 years old when I started altar serving, which is basically being part of the mass, the church masses with the priest, and like helping him do all the altar duties, assisting in any way possible. So I probably did it for about 6 or 7 years, which is a really long time, but I didn't really have anything to do, so I kind of did that every Sunday, and I wasn't really too in touch with God, but I was hoping during that time I would become more religious through it and probably hear God's voice telling me what I need to do in life. But I never really had that experience compared to other people, which is another reason why I'm agnostic, since I never really had that close relationship and nothing really called out to me saying like, Joy, I'm here, or Jocelyn, I'm here.
For me, I decided to choose this religion due to my personal experience. At the same time, after coming to understand about this religion, I feel like this religion is very powerful and really gives me assurance and promising life that I could overcome.
I feel music in a way is itself kind of, it's not a religion, but it itself brings you closer to a source or closer to God. Music can help me do that, but I have my own daily ritual that I do myself, mainly just meditation and quietening my mind, breathing exercises, or even yoga. I attend regular yoga classes. Those are equivalent, I think, to music and making my body feel alive. So regarding different religions, I think music is really important to me. I do not depend on a certain religion and I do not have to follow what maybe the people within the religion say I have to do. So, people do depend on it, but I don't.
I don't practice it anymore because I don't believe in a God who doesn't help people in their most time of need. Because when I consider that most Filipinos are Catholic or Christian, and they're in the Philippines, and all these horrible typhoons that happen in the Philippines, and he wasn't there to save most of the people.
Well, I guess the best way to put it is with monotheistic faiths, you require a God, and without a God, none of it makes sense. If you deny that basic premise, nothing can follow. With other faiths, you have to believe in some basic tenet that without it, none of the other, practices of that religion make sense. And I'm incapable of accepting those basic premises.
I don't think I'd be really different without it. I don't think it's, because I grew up in such a reformed family, I don't think it's played too much of an importance on my life.
You can say I sort of created my own religion in a way by drawing different knowledges and wisdom from all these various religions that I've practiced.